man. I'm good.
You're good to go?
Yeah.
All right, welcome to the Film Guild. This is an episode 5 months in the making. Just like the ancient ones, we are rising from the depths of the earth to devour the entire planet. I am Jason. I'm here with Fred.
What's up, guys?
How's it going?
Pretty damn good. How about for you, man?
I'm good. I could probably devour the entire world with my fat ass, I bet, if I was to rise from them.
Look, this is the reason why you stay seating, though, because if you did rise, you would fall.
Gravity.
And you would just, like, crack a giant crater through the earth, and it would be horrible. I mean, it would be a world-ending event.
So yes, it's been a little while. This is technically episode 4, even though our other episodes have been up for several months. Every 4 episodes, we decided we're gonna do one of our favorites. The Film Guild basically takes a lesser-known genre film each week, and we talk about it, break it down to its core, say what we like, what we don't like, peel back the layers of the cheesy onion, and find out what it's all about. And every 4 episodes, we're going to take a favorite of ours, maybe a blockbuster or something that everybody knows about, and talk about it. And so the Ancient Ones Rising ties into this. We're doing Cabin in the Woods. We're going to break it down. We're going to talk about it, about the good stuff, maybe not so good stuff, and go from there. I would like to shout out right from the beginning our new intro music. Before we were kind of using a little cheesy bit that I threw up on.
It was a little charming, I'll admit.
It was all right. So some young strapping lads in Saskatchewan, Canada, a band called Small City Blues has allowed us to use some of their music as our intro and outro music. I know their guitarist. I used to hang out with him a few times when I lived in Canada in film school. He was my roommate's nephew, so I kind of knew about these guys already. So if you want to, you can go to smallcityblues.com and check out their music and buy their music and support us, independent music.
Let's ask this real quick.
Sure.
So, what was your reaction going into the movie? Like, how much did you know about the movie before going in the first time?
So here's the thing. Something that was great for me that maybe wasn't for you is I kind of went into it blind. I saw the TV spots, and there was the bit with the cabin in the woods, and then there was a couple of shots of them in the elevator and stuff, and you kind of go, what is this? So I went into it kind of blind and surprised. All the little twists and turns genuinely surprised me. Unfortunately, you didn't have that same.
I managed to keep myself blind. I didn't watch a single trailer for it before it came out, and then about the week that it came out, I happened to be on Facebook to find somebody post, "Oh, by the way, here's the spoiler for the entire movie."
Yeah,
by
I
being
hate
like,
that.
I really loved its Lovecraftian themes, and like hearing that, immediately I'm like, oh, by the way, guys, spoilers alert. We do not censor ourselves on this one, because if we did, we would never talk about anything ever.
Oh my god! Oh yeah, I totally forgot about that. All of our podcasts are extremely spoiler heavy. We actually give away the entire movie. We discuss the whole movie. So if you haven't seen this and it's already ruined for you,
here's the thing: is I feel like after the first month, this movie got ruined for a lot of people in that way, where I think that a lot of them did find out, oh, by the way, it's not all about this cabin in the woods.
Yeah, I also kind of feel like after a month or two it's been out on DVD, you're kind of free to talk about it, because, really, if you haven't
to an
seen
extent,
it,
then you also have to think there's a lot of movies that we cover that a lot of people might not have seen that have been out for a couple years, like Parasomnia. I mean, I guarantee you half of our audience, as meager as it is, hadn't seen that one.
Okay, so Cabin in the Woods, the best Scooby-Doo episode ever.
Oh, I totally agree with that. Like, immediately I latched on to our stoner character as Shaggy, because he's got the exact same sort of look to him.
Yeah,
and
it's that obvious. And you've got Chris Hemsworth, who plays Kurt, who is the perfect Fred, the kind of jock guy.
Yeah.
Jules kind of fits in loosely for Daphne. Kristen Connolly as Dana, kind of fits in with Velma. She's kind of nerdy, and the more of the final girl kind of bit about her. And then, of course, Fran Krantz as Marty is the perfect Shaggy. The only problem is that it leaves Holden, played by Jesse Williams, is the only one left out. So I was like, he's the Scooby, because where else am I going to put him, right?
Yeah, that's the one problem, is he has kind of the traits of a male Daphne without being like I'm not going to ever be able to sleep with anyone, except,
Exactly.
Actually, that's not true, because I guarantee you half the people would like...
He gets a husband bulge.
Yeah. God damn, that line is like the greatest thing ever, by the way.
And Richard Jenkins, who plays Sitterson, is the perfect old man.
Yeah.
And the RV sits in for the perfect mystery machine.
Ah,
So, I mean, there you go, Scooby-Doo. It's amazing. It got a Rotten Tomatoes rating of 92. It got a user rating of 73. It runs about an hour and 35 minutes. This is like the perfect cautionary tale of people who want to make films that even though your movie may get bought, even though you may shoot it, and even though you may complete it, it still may not ever come out. There are still movies that go and sit on the shelf forever. This was one of those. After they shot it in March of 2009, it was supposed to come out in 2010, but MGM at that point went bankrupt. I don't know if you remember the big MGM bankruptcy or not.
I don't.
It was one of those things where everybody started freaking out because they were supposed to do The Hobbit. They had the rights to distribute The Hobbit or something, and that was all up in the air because of the bankruptcy. And two films that they had, Cabin in the Woods and Red Dawn, which actually also had Chris Hemsworth in it, they were basically put on the shelf. They just kind of sat there while MGM kind of tried to figure out what they were going to do, and it did have the possibility of not getting released. But in 2011, they sold it to Lionsgate, who was the perfect company to buy it. Lionsgate bought it, and they put it out in 2012. The funny thing is he actually, Chris Hemsworth, I believe, actually got this job and started doing this before Thor, and I believe this actually came out after Thor.
Yeah, because he started filming in 2009, and it came out 2012.
Right, which kind of helped Cabin in the Woods a little bit because he was suddenly a superstar. So
yeah,
it's like now this movie came out, everybody kind of thought oh wow, this is something he did afterwards, but it actually came out a couple of years, or was done a couple of years beforehand.
That's the thing though, and it could just be my weird brand of face blindness, but I did not recognize him as Thor at all until you had mentioned his name. I'm like, oh, is that who it's supposed to be? Because I don't memorize cast people
he also
at all.
Before that, his big thing was he had played Captain Kirk's dad in the Star Trek reboot.
Yep, I'm looking at his IMDb page right now, and that's about the only thing that he had going for him after that point.
Right.
Or up until that point.
The script was written in 3 days. Joss Whedon and Drew Goddard. Drew Goddard had worked with him on Buffy and Angel, and he'd also worked with J.J. Abrams on Lost. And this was kind of, I think, the one thing that he directed. But they basically were like, you know what? Let's write something we want to write, not something that we have to write. And they locked themselves up in a hotel room for 3 days and wrote this. Basically, they split up scenes and wrote different scenes separately at the same time, like in different rooms. So that would be kind of an interesting exercise to do.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I kind of remember listening to there was that Smodcast with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost where they were talking about writing Paul and doing the same sort of thing, where taking shifts and for the most part locking themselves up in a hotel room to get this thing taken care of.
Yeah, but there's I think they actually had an office, but that went on for
it went on for a while because it was
months, because I think Simon Pegg went off and did.
Simon Pegg was doing Star Trek at the time.
Right. Yeah, so they got together and did this and shot it, and I listened because I've seen this so many times. The set of notes that I took, I actually watched it on Blu-ray with the director's commentary.
Right.
With director-producer commentary, which was fantastic. I learned a lot of stuff that really both of them would be happy if people just gave them mounds and mounds of drugs. Their whole lesson is drugs can save the world. And yeah, good stuff. I also knew we were doing something right because at the beginning of the commentary for this film, they talk about what they're drinking.
Yeah, which is always a smart thing. By the way, what are you drinking today?
Today I'm because I was scrambling around, I actually just have a mug root beer.
I am drinking some Earps Original Sarsaparilla today.
Oh, man, that
always a
sounds
classic
good.
of mine. It's great.
Yeah. I would trade you. That sounds good. Next week, I'm going to go and buy some new stuff to try out.
Good.
Yeah. Let's do something a little different compared to what we've done our last few episodes. Because our last few episodes we did were about 2 hours apiece, which in most cases was actually longer than the movie.
I mean, on the one hand, it's nice to be able to really dig into the movie.
Sure.
And really examine it, scene by scene. I'm like, okay, well, did this work and did this not? But on the other hand, it's like, we do have a problem where you might as well go watch the movie than formulate your own opinions.
Right. Yeah, it's almost like we might as well just do a running commentary on YouTube while the movie's playing in the background or something.
I mean,
we should do that.
I would be all for it. We could just release it as a bonus episode. Fuck it. We'll do Birdemic.
We should do that. If we actually we start building up a decent audience, which we're almost kind of having to start at the bottom of the pile again. I almost feel like we had to hit a reset button because we were actually starting to build up a little bit of traction there, and then we petered out. So once we start getting some traction going, we should think about doing that.
I mean, to be fair though, the hiatus was a little screwy, but I think it was necessary. during that time, I finally built a computer.
Yeah,
You know,
we're sitting in a better part. I have a different microphone, so
yeah,
I'm not like before, a little behind the scenes, but I was holding a Rock Band USB microphone with like a sock on top of it as like a windscreen. And for 2 hours, I was holding this mic up in the air, and sometimes you can hear me messing around with it, and my arm hurt so bad by the end of it that it was ridiculous. And now I'm using I have a we also sometimes we live stream games on Twitch TV, and so I have a lighting and mic setup now for that, and I'm using it for this as well. So it's a little better quality, I hope, and.
So, yeah, we had to hit a reset button, but I think it's a good reset button. I think we could definitively call this season 2.
Okay, I'm good. It's kind of like, I didn't realize like Beavis and Butthead only had like a 4 or 5 episode first season or something.
Oh, did it really?
I was looking through, the other day, watching some videos on it. So we'll call it that. I'm good. Or it can be like BBC, where they only like Sherlock only has like 3 episodes.
Yeah.
Like per
So
season.
we're gonna do 3 more. We're gonna take another like year-long hiatus, and
let's hope not. Let's hope
yeah,
not.
no, let's not do that.
So in order to kind of streamline stuff, I decided we just kind of go over the whole movie. I call it 3 acts in 3 minutes. I will pick it up first and see if I can get through it in 3 minutes. And then we'll kind of dig into kind of the more, not a scene-by-scene type of thing, but really
like the highlights.
Yeah, hone in on the stuff that we really liked about it, and some of the things that maybe we didn't. Unfortunately, I can't even say that. Unfortunately, I love this movie. This is absolutely. There was a reason why I wanted to be the first favorites episode, because this is one of my favorite movies. So
I mean, it's become what I compare most horror movies to. Like,
right.
I take things from this film and like apply it to it. Where they bring up archetypes, and it's like, okay, well, what archetype does this character fall under in this horror film?
Right. And I know, like, films are subjective, which is fantastic, and I know that there are some people, and probably a decent percentage of population who didn't care for it, and that's fine. But I loved it, so I'm going to attack it from that.
To me, it's like this movie is to horror what Scream was for it in the 90s.
Absolutely.
Where it's that very meta sort of horror film that puts things back into perspective.
Right, and it's and they pretty much say from the get-go, it's a love letter to the classic horror movies, and it kind of is, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go through the 3 acts quickly, try to get it done in under 3 minutes. I'm even gonna try to time myself. I'm gonna kind of stretch a little bit. Are you ready?
Yeah, and I'm gonna do my damnedest to derail you. Go.
Okay, and go. So the film starts out. We're introduced to 2 middle-aged men that look like there's some kind of giant bureaucracy in some large industrial-type operation. The one guy is him and his wife are in a fertility program, and they talk about that, and you're kind of left going, what the hell is going on here? What is this all about? And then, boom, the title comes up, Cabin in the Woods. Next, we're introduced to a group of college kids who are going to cabin for a weekend, and you're introduced one by one to their archetypes, which we'll learn about more later. They all get into the RV, and they roll off for the weekend, and it pans up, and there's a guy on the roof with one of those Secret Service earbud things that says, hey, they're on their way. So again, you're kind of left thinking, what the hell's going on? They drive to an old gas station, the quintessential gas station in all slasher movies. They come across the Harbinger, a really old, scary man who tells them that they should turn away, that doom is nigh, that they shouldn't go forward, and they laugh at him and they continue, which is a very important part later on. So we go back and forth between the people who are running the show, the 2 middle-aged men, a guard, and a cute little chemistry lab chick who kind of comes in and out. And we go between them in the bunker and the people in the cabin. We learn that they release pheromones, and they use lighting and stuff to kind of guide them to what they want them to do. They basically guide them into a basement where they find a whole bunch of trinkets, a bunch of junk, and they're all fiddling with different stuff. And it's all during a party of Truth or Dare. And Jules, the blonde, makes out with a wolf, which is really hot and makes me feel funny inside. They go into the basement. Basement door flies open. They go in the basement. It's Act 2. They mess around with all these trinkets, and one of them opens a book and starts reading it from it, and so they all hover around, and she reads Latin, which who thinks reading Latin is a good idea in a horror movie? But whatever. The Latin brings up a scary family of cannibals who starts picking them off one by one. The jock and his girlfriend go out and make out. She gets killed. He comes back. They get split up. Bunch of hijinks happen. They get into the RV. They try to leave. They find out that as they're trying to leave through a cave, the cave blows up, crumbles down. I'm running out of time. Holy shit. So the jock tries to jump a crevice in his bike to go get people, and he runs into a force field and dies. One guy, Holden, they're driving back to the cabin in their RV. He gets a thing through the neck. He dies. The last chick is about to be killed by one of the cannibals, and the stoner friend ends up being alive. They both go into the Act 3. They go into the 10 seconds left. They go into the facility, which ends up being a giant sacrifice where they try to kill everybody up in a big sacrifice to keep the Ancient Ones from rising. The whole thing fails in the end. The Ancient Ones come up, fade to black, 3 minutes and 7 seconds.
That wasn't bad, although you did miss a couple bits.
I missed some because I had kind of mapped it out, and I was kind of going through it at the same time, and I kept looking at the thing. I'll let you do the next episode. I want to see how well you do.
Okay, I mean, I'll map out the next episode. What is our next episode? I'll let you tell me what that is once we're at the end, because yeah. Okay, so where do we want to go from here? I guess just start going down from our favorites. Or?
Yeah, let's just, because I just took notes as I watched, so let's just go from there. We can start off with the opening sequences, which I loved.
Yeah.
And you don't realize it at first. There's two different. You definitely view this film two ways. The first time that you ever see it, and like the second time when you know what's up. When you can kind of go back and look and see. It's kind of like Signs, where you can kind of go back and look at, or not Signs, Sixth Sense, where you can go back and look at all of the, the signs of what's going on that you probably didn't miss. And so all this blood pools around and makes different, paintings, basically, or inside the blood pools is paintings, and they're all sacrifices.
Yeah.
Throughout the ages.
I think your first time through a little confusing because you're just like, what's going? I mean, throughout the film, we've got those scenes where they do break the vials and it pours the blood into the plates into the bowls, and it goes into like a stone sort of like.
It's like a relief, like a stone
that's
relief,
what I'm thinking. Yeah, stone relief, and it's like your first time seeing those, you don't really connect what it is because first of all, they only show you like a little piece of it,
right?
And then second of all, it's just like, well, what exactly is going on here? You're kind of lost. I'll admit.
Lost, and they actually say in the commentary, like, they want you to be lost. Like in the first bit where you sit down in the theater and the movie starts, like you're basically watching The Office. It's like two guys doing this bit, like they're just another day in the office, and they basically wanted it to look like you sat down in the wrong movie.
Yep, I was just about to bring that up. Yeah, because it's like, that's really a well-designed sort of thing, right, because it does seem like I came in here for a kind of Evil Dead-esque type movie.
Exactly, a cabin in the woods. And in fact, the studio said, like, people are going to like be confused. And they're like, that's what we want. We want them to be confused and not know what's going on, and then piece by piece, the puzzle falls into place. Or, if you will, the curtain gets pulled back just a little bit more until you actually figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Let's see. Bradley Whitford and Richard Jenkins are hilarious. They're the two guys that basically run the actual thing in the bunker.
They're kind of our truckers of this movie.
They're truckers back from Zombievers. They are hilarious, and apparently, like, they would like have them do scenes, and then like Bradley Whitford, who is you might remember from stuff like Billy Madison. He was the main guy, the main bad guy per se.
Right.
They kind of said, okay, now do it Bradley mode. And he would just like rattle stuff off, and it's hilarious. Amy Acker is she's from the chem lab who's buddies with them, and she kind of comes in and out. She's in Person of Interest. She plays Root. She's pretty adorable.
I honestly probably not that far into Person of Interest. I think I'm still like only 3 episodes in.
Root doesn't show up until like the second season or something. But it's like this very stark juxtaposition. You have the cabin, you have the horror movie going on, and it's very much a traditional horror movie, and then you have the bunker, which actually ends up being underneath, I guess.
See, to me, that whole bunker is like, that's where the really meta stuff comes in.
Right, and I love it. I don't know. There's just something about it that I love. The set design of the bunker, I was going to talk about a little later, but we might as well now. The director grew up in, I think it was White Sands.
Right.
Or Alamogordo, one of the two.
Okay.
Which is where they, design nuclear bombs, basically, or design nuclear weapons.
Right.
So, he was used to seeing this stuff. I love it because if you look at this bunker, it has a timelessness to it. Up towards the front where the giant monitors are, like, is all of this stuff that has, like, gauges and knobs and levers, and it looks like it's from the 1950s.
Yeah.
And as you get farther back to where they're at, it turns into, flat screens and, computers and touchpads and all this stuff.
Right.
So it really looks like this facility has been there a really, really long time. You can see different eras of technology inside of it.
And that's the thing is I didn't think about it till now, but it's like, can you imagine what it must be like to have to try and renovate that bunker?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's probably something that they do the rest of the year.
Yeah, maybe.
Because it seems
just
like this has to go on. They don't really say, do they, if it goes on for, if they do it every year, if it goes
I think
on
that
every
they
few
might
years?
have happen that it happens every year. I'm not sure though, because it's like
I
I
don't
was
know.
thinking about that this current viewing. I'm like, well, that does make it so it's really tough because I was thinking about the ramification of the end, right?
Right.
Where it's like, let's say that she does shoot Marty,
Right.
and kind of satisfy the ritual thing, but then it's like, is it really worth it when you've got to do it every year for eternity?
Yeah, I would find it more likely that it would happen like every 13 years or every 20 years or even every 10 years or something like that. It would seem
Yeah.
like it would be, because this doesn't just happen in the US, it happens all over the world.
And that's the other thing is I was wondering like exactly how long they have to track each victim, or if the sacrifices are like how they choose them, I guess, and things like that, because they do mention like, oh yeah, no, we've been like spiking the blonde's hair dye for a while now, or
Right.
we've been sort of like, we planted this idea of there being a cousin,
Right.
and stuff, and it's like, this is stuff that it seems like it would take a while to engineer.
Sure.
And it's kind of like, also, how do they choose this specific group? Like, they have to find a group that has these 5 people.
Right. Yeah, I would imagine it takes a long time. I wouldn't think it would happen every year, but it's funny that you mentioned the blonde thing because that's kind of my next thing. Kristen Connolly looks great in underwear, by the way.
Right.
Like that's how the college bit opens up. Is her and Jules are dorm mates or whatever, and she's like in her shirt and panties, like going through books, and it's like a great way to open it up. The one thing,
Which, real
Go
quick,
ahead.
can I just say, and
Sure.
this has bugged me every time that I've watched this movie, is Kristen Connolly looks exactly like a long-haired piano girl,
are you
and
serious?
it is unnerving.
Oh, well, my God.
Yeah.
Check out some of the past videos from our live streams. Get the inside scoop, the piano girl. Yeah. So the one thing that I kind of had an issue with is it's a minor thing is the whole Jules thing and the blonde hair.
Right.
It's an inside joke thing that kind of runs, and I'm not sure it really works for me very much. I wish that you could have seen her before she was blonde.
Right.
Because everybody kind of goes, whoa, In fact, Thor, I guess I'm just going to keep calling him Thor, like kind of says, hey, I'm kind of seeing somebody, and you're like way more blonde than her. And she's like, haha, look, And the whole idea is that the chem team puts these kind of, I don't want to say mind control, but it makes her more susceptible to suggestion.
Well, that's the thing, though, is it seems like a lot of what they do, and oh my god, she was in Power Rangers. Some of the stuff that they mentioned like makes it seem like they do have some sort of weird mind control thing, because I mean they've got like their pheromone mists,
Right.
They
But
have
it
that
can't
bit where
be
they
mind
put out the
control, right?
they put out the thing though where it's like, oh, and now you're suddenly going to get the idea to split up. And it's a lot more, it's maybe not necessarily mind control, but a lot of it's like subliminal messaging. They have the bit with Marty and the voice telling him to go outside
Because
and to go for a walk.
It can't be mind control because they have to make choices of their own or the system doesn't work. They say that several times. Like, we may push them in a certain direction, but the choices have to be theirs or the system breaks down.
Yeah.
So that, so when you see her, she's already being manipulated by the hair color. The Amy Acker, I can't remember her name. She says the stuff we put in isn't so it's already been working through her scalp. It's already working. So we never get to see her before she's being manipulated per se. So I don't know. It's just kind of one of those things that's kind of odd where they more than once mention her blonde hair and it being a big deal that she changed her hair, but we don't get to see her beforehand.
Yeah.
And it's what I think is a tragic loss is we don't get to see her. We don't get to hear her accent. She's actually from New Zealand and has like an amazing accent. We never get to hear it.
That is the weird thing, is that it seems really strange to me when people decide to mask those sort of accents. Like, I don't know why they would choose to do that, just from a character perspective.
I think just to make them more American.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
and it
gotta be
happens
it.
all the time. I mean, you know, The Walking Dead, The 100, a lot of CW shows, they import people from like England and Australia, New Zealand, and they have them, you know,
And that's the
have
100
American accents,
seems,
which they get, you know, big time. Even Thor, Chris Hemsworth, he's from Australia.
yeah, which is
So
why I guess it didn't quite hit me or something. Because like, if he's not being grandiose and like booming, it's like it's not quite the same.
right, it does work a little bit because the effect that it has, because they don't really talk about it. Well, Marty kind of talks about it, is that he's actually, I mean, he's muscular and athletic, but he's actually like he's a brainer.
Well,
Like,
and
he's
that's a fun sort of thing though. Is it's like I was looking at the trivia and they described him as a muscular Jesus.
Right. You know, I can't remember the degree that he's doing, but it's kind of a nerdy degree. And because of the drugs, he starts getting very aggressive and very jockish and very, you know, frat boyish, you know, where he kind of wasn't before. I mean, they get into that because when he starts talking to Kristen Connolly's character, he's like, hey, don't read this crap. Don't read this book. Read this book, this book, this book, and, you know, read this. It'll totally impress the, you know, and it's kind of like, wow, so he's got a brain about him.
Yeah.
The one thing that cracked me up about that scene is the whole like you know, what is this? What's this book? What is this? And
Oh,
she says,
right, yeah.
You know, I learned it from you, okay? And she like takes off, and I'm not sure a lot of people get that because that was a big like drug PSA thing from like the 80s and 90s.
I didn't realize that it was a direct reference to that PSA, but I had a pretty good laugh my first time seeing it.
Yeah, it was. You know, it's kind of a throwback that that kind of, you know, cracks me up. But I do like it that you very quickly, the nice thing about a good flowing Act 1 is that you get introduced to everybody and you learn everything about them in the first couple of minutes.
Yeah.
You know, you learn very quickly that I'm going to have to look and see what Kristen Connolly's character's name was. Dana.
Yep.
You know, Dana's a brainer. She's kind of prude, although she's been banging her professor, and she's kind of heartbroken because the professor like sent her an email and said, "Yeah, I can't. We're not banging anymore." You know, so she's kind of the, you know, she has the final girl attributes about her, right?
Which was the thing though, is I was kind of curious because like she's supposed to have this whole like virgin archetype, and it's like, but that whole opening bit kind of spells it out to the opposite. So I don't know if it's just like she plays the more like innocent type character.
Yeah,
or...
exactly. Like at the end when the director kind of lays out everybody's place, and she says the virgin, and she goes, me? And it's, you know, because obviously she's been sleeping with people, and
because the thing is, I have in my notes, I'm
Wait.
like, there is no way that she's a virgin. There is literally zero
well,
way.
no, because this says that she's been fucking her professor,
right?
You know, and so, you know, the director kind of goes, we work with what we have, basically. So her archetype is that she's kind of the more prudish. When she goes to the cabin, she doesn't, you know, everybody else is like, hey, we're going to set you up with Holden. We're going to get you laid this weekend. You're going to relax. And she's kind of like, I don't want that. I'm going to read my books. I'm just kind of like, I'm just going to relax. I don't want to mess around with anybody, you know. So she kind of has that final girl attribute to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, you know, Chris Hemsworth, you know, you learn that he's athletic, but he's very smart. You know, Jules is very flirty, which, again, you don't really get to see what she is before she's under the influence because the blonde stuff has already gotten into her. And that's her vice as far as when people start getting knocked off, is she becomes very flirty and very, like, slutty.
Yeah.
Even though she probably wasn't, you know, before this. You run into Holden, who's, you know, kind of the male version of Dana. You know, he's very smart, and he's just kind of like, I kind of hope I get laid, but if I don't, oh, well, it's not the first time, you know.
Yeah.
He's kind of a little bit shy, very, very nice guy. And then you have Marty, who's like the ultimate stoner. Like he's got,
I mean, he's literally Shaggy, but
yeah, I mean,
without a Scooby. I mean, that's it.
Yeah, he's lit up from the minute he gets out of his car.
With
to the
the
very
coolest reveal.
The greatest bong in the entire world, right?
Which I've actually got rid of my notes for later. Chekhov's bong. Because we're introduced to it back in Act 1, and then about Act 2-ish, he uses it as a club, and it's like the greatest moment.
That's right. That's a good call, dude. Good call. Yeah, so you learn everything about them, you learn their archetypes, and then, you know, we immediately get on the road. And we kind of start getting some foreshadowing when you're in the RV, and Marty goes on his rant about the world needing to be reset. You know, he's
Yeah.
like, I just want to be, because Jules is complaining that the cabin's not on the GPS. He's like, I don't want to be GPS tagged or anything. I want to be off the grid. I don't want to be tracked or anything else. And, you know, one of them says, you know, does the world, you know, I guess the world just needs to crumble or something. And he says, you know, something like the world needs to crumble. We're just too chicken shit to let it. You know, basically saying he feels like the world needs to be reset. And that plays perfectly into like everything that's going on.
Yeah.
At the end.
Towards the end bit, I mean, I was actually gonna ask, like, would you not just shoot Marty, though? I mean, he's your lovable stoner friend. But, I mean, come on. One guy versus the entire world. You know, what is it now, like 7.10 billion people?
Right. Something like that. Yeah. You know, I mean, here's the thing I love this. I actually have it later on, but I love the ambiguity of this whole thing. Nobody's really a bad guy in this, you know, because the people that are technically the antagonists, they believe they're doing good. They're trying to keep the Ancient Ones in check. They're trying to keep the world going. And, you know, nobody, with the exception of, you know, a couple of scenes where they're, you know, everybody's partying or taking bets on who's going to, you know, pick what device, nobody's happy about people getting killed.
No.
You
I
know,
mean, hell, at the end, they celebrate not because, oh, well, we saved the world, but because it's like, oh, nope, there's a good chance the Virgin will live.
Yeah, you know, and so, you know, when you watch them, it's like they don't want people to die, but they're doing it because they feel like they have to save everybody. And by the same token, you can look at it the kids' side where they're like, hey, you're trying to kill us assholes, and they want to survive, obviously. So I love how there's not really clear-cut evil because, except for, I guess, the Ancient Ones, I suppose, but I like it because you can see it from both sides, that there really isn't bad guys. They're doing what they think they have to do. And I absolutely love that. The Harbinger. What'd you think of the Harbinger?
Honestly, it was a really kind of interesting character, and finding out later that, you know, he plays another sort of archetype, and comparing that to then all these other characters in horror films was fantastic. I think just the dialogue exchange, especially between like him and Marty,
right,
was great.
Right.
I don't know though. He had a couple questionable lines of dialogue, especially when he calls Jules a whore. It's like, okay.
He got a little aggressive, didn't he?
Yeah, he gets super aggressive.
Right. Yeah, maybe he didn't need to. So the Harbinger is in place because he's part of the system. You know, all of these, it's like a tumbler and a lock. All of these things have to hit a certain place in order for the sacrifice to take effect. And the first thing is that there has to be a Harbinger of Doom, which happens in almost every, like, Texas Chainsaw style movie.
Or we could just take, like, Friday the 13th, and you've got
the old man.
Crazy McBallnuts. It was like, yeah, that guy right there is immediately who I go to as Harbinger.
Yeah, you're all doomed.
Or, better yet,
place has
everybody.
got a death curse.
Everybody in the town, honestly, like, says, yeah, you don't go out that way.
Yeah, like in the original Friday the 13th, the guy that's taken the cook out, he's like, don't go out there. And she's like, ha ha ha, at least I'm not scared of ghosts. And
yeah.
It's like, and it's the same thing, you know, and they say later on, like, they have to be told that there's doom, and they have to ignore him and go on anyway.
Which does raise the question of, like, how often do they get told and then, like, decide, yeah, you know what, maybe he's right, let's not go, and get freaked out by it.
Do they do that? You know, is there a point where somebody says, or is it manipulated and they find the right amount of people that are like, eat a dick, we're going anyway. So yeah, he was the perfect harbinger of doom, and, you know, a great homage to that kind of character in those things. I love the cabin. They made it look a lot like the Evil Dead cabin. Which
I actually have that in my notes. Yeah, it's very Evil Dead like. I mean, I think the only thing missing is like the swing.
There you go. I wrote it down. I said minus the swinging chair. You know, that's such a great part of the original Evil Dead when they get out of the car and the
and it's like it's banging up against the wall. Yeah, it's like it's such a fantastic shot.
It's amazing, and you know, it's awesome when you go back into the bunker and you see that they have the entire floor plans laid out, and they have cameras all over the place, and they have all kinds of gadgets all over the whole cabin to kind of make things go how they want it to go. I
didn't really think about it till now, but it's like, or till my last viewing, but it's like that huge switchboard that he hits to trigger like, I think it's the let's split up gas.
Right.
It's like they've got 100,000 different options to choose from for like their tools to get things done.
Well, and here's the thing: if you watch some of the extras, there's a video where the two guys take you around that thing, and it's like they make a point of saying like every button in this whole thing has like a purpose.
Well,
Like,
'cause
and
it's
he
like,
goes in, he literally starts hitting buttons. If I want him to do this, I hit this one. If I want him to do this, I hit this one. It's like, holy shit, you know, congrats to the art department and the production designer, because
well, I
that's
mean, I somehow
badass.
missed it till this time, but like, there's the bit where she kills the one redneck torture zombie, uh, with the she stabs with a knife a bunch of times, and then they hit a
Right.
couple switches, and it zaps her hand. She drops it, and I
Right.
somehow missed that until like this time around. But it's
I
like,
actually, I have not caught that before.
and it's like,
So congrats to
wow,
you.
they really like planned for everything, because it's like they planned on, just in case she happens to pick this thing up, and we need to make her not be able to keep it. Let's zap her with it.
Yeah, and I love how like they change rooms at one point, and so they call down to the control center, and they're like, "Hey, we have a room switch in room 4 and room 3 or whatever."
Yeah, they talk about how we need a scenario adjustment, which makes me then wonder though, like, how much of this is pre-planned? Like, did they already
have to
pre-plan
plan for
what
everything.
rooms that they're gonna take? Because that's the
Yeah.
thing, is that when they say we need a scenario adjustment, it seems like they already had it planned. Where it's like, okay, these two are
Absolutely.
gonna be in these two rooms, and they knew that before they even came up.
Absolutely, I honestly believe that they had everything planned out. And the reason that they switch rooms is because between Dana and Holden's room is like a one-way mirror, and like there's a giant painting of like a goat sacrifice, and he's like, no, like I'm
Which
not
to me
having that.
isn't super disturbing. I could probably have that hung up in my
You
room, and I'd
probably
be fine.
could. The average person probably couldn't. They would be disturbed.
You
And
want
he
no way
takes
to
it
keep
down-
girls out of your room? That's it. It's just like, let me hang up this giant poster, and you'll totally still sleep with me, right?
And you get like you believe that in the end it's going to be Dana and Holden surviving, because Holden has this kind of virtue about him, because when he discovers it and Dana's going to start undressing, at first he's kind of like, I love it when he's like looking, he's like, this is
That's
this is
things
gonna
I
happen.
do
This is
love
gonna
how it
happen.
felt like
And
a
he's like,
realistic portrayal of like,
Yeah, and he
oh
steps
fuck,
out of
I
camera,
know
and
that
then
I should, but
yeah, his head pops back in, and he kind of goes, oh, and then. So my question one of this is: would you have told Dana about the one-way mirror? Would you
considering
have
that she looks like Piano Girl, no.
you wouldn't have told her?
Probably. Actually, you know what? Here's the thing, though, is then you have the possibility of somebody having walked in and discovered it, though. So it might have been better to just get it out of the way.
Here's the problem: somebody in that bunker would have totally seen Spank Time.
Yeah,
They totally
that's
would have,
true.
because I don't think I would have told
But
her, and they
I
would have been
don't.
going.
I don't know. I mean, it's
Somebody
like,
might have like put some pheromone to make me stop or something, because they didn't want to watch that.
here's
but
the thing: is
I'm
if
not
if
sure I
I
would've said
didn't
anything.
know like that I was being watched, though, it's like it wouldn't really affect me then.
Yeah, it totally. Totally.
I mean,
would have been
afterwards, like, if you
I
found
probably
out,
would
you
have
might
been
be
like, they would have been watching me licking the mirror and like rubbing my hand all over it and everything, and yeah.
That's the thing, though, is I wonder, like, how many of these people just discovered the weird fetishes. Like, imagine if somebody brought his phone up and it's, like, just loaded with diaper porn. And it's like, these poor guys just have to sit through this, and it's like, oh, no.
Oh my god, that would be amazing. So the other scene, one of my favorite scenes, is when the Harbinger calls in.
Oh, yeah,
And
the
checks in,
speakerphone.
and nobody wants to talk to him. In fact, tells the operator guy on the phone. He says, take a message. He's like, he's really creepy. I don't want to talk to him. And so they put him on speakerphone, and it's the two guys and the girl. What is her name?
Lynn? Amy Acker?
Yeah, Amy Acker's character. I'm not sure what her character's name is.
It's Lynn.
Yeah, so they, Lynn. They, and is it Truman, who's the guard with them? There's like a kind of like a mercenary guard, or a guy that's hired to guard the room to make sure that everybody performs their duty. Nobody like leaves and sabotages it. Nobody comes in that's not supposed to be in there. So they're all four hovering over the speakerphone and listening to the Harbinger. Mordecai. His name is Mordecai.
Yeah, and he gives this like long, very like flowery, almost I would put it as like a biblical sort of tone.
Oh, for sure. Like
it's very much like a played up sort of prophet type character.
Yeah, he's like, they've crossed to the killing floor. Blah blah blah. The time, they must be blah, and it's like, and they're just like cracking up at him, and he's like, "Hey, am I on speakerphone?" And so they tap the thing to make it sound like he's not. And he's like, "That's really rude." It's like, and so then he's like, "Okay, you're off, Mordecai." And so he's like, "Thank you." And he's like, starts going on, and then they're laughing again. He's like, "Am I still on speakerphone?" Anyway, it's like a hilarious kind of aside that cracks me up. And then we get into the Truth or Dare game where everybody's getting drunk, and I'm gonna assume that the the drugs that affect Kurt, Chris Hemsworth's character, is in the beer.
Yeah.
Because it
that
really
makes
seems
sense.
like that's where he starts getting very aggressive and very frat boyish. And
Well, and he always has his just, I guess, mug in his hands.
right. Oh, excuse me. Marty's like completely lit up. Everybody's getting drunk. And they're playing Truth or Dare. And Marty like dares Jules to make out with a wolf. Like there's a big wolf's head on the wall. I have to tell you that that was very hot.
Yeah, like
I don't care
weirdly
that it's
so.
like a fake wolf head or not. I could slow motion that shit for days. Not gonna lie, that was something else.
Oh, I'm sure somebody has, or like at least done one of those juxtaposed gifs.
You're right. So question 2. Did you find it A, disturbing and wrong, B, hot but in a wrong way, or C, just hot?
I'd go B.
Yeah, hot but in a wrong way.
Yeah,
I gotta tell you that I'm not even sure I consider it wrong. I just consider it hot.
it's just something about the taxidermied wolf thing. Just because I keep thinking about the fur.
That's true. And like when she's done, she like picks hair out of her mouth.
Yeah,
Which
and it's
is
just
hilarious.
like I don't know. I don't know what they use for the tongue as well. I mean, I know like the actual prop tongue was silicone.
Yeah, and you could tell.
Yeah, but it's like the actual taxidermied animal, or like let's say the teeth. Because just think about it, man. That if they use the actual teeth, it's like that could have been tearing into a rabbit at some point, and now you got all weird like rabbit germs in you and stuff, and it's all weird.
I take it back. It's wrong. It's hot, but in a wrong way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to mention, I mean, there's the whole like it is an animal, you know,
Right.
and that to a lot of us. I can't speak for you, but for a lot of us, is kind of a bit of a taboo zone.
I guess that's probably one of those things that's considered wrong. So in the middle of it, almost in an Evil Dead moment, the floor door. There's a door in the floor.
Yeah, the trap door.
Trap door flings open, just like in the Evil Dead.
I was about to say I didn't know if that was a reference to it or not. Like,
I
because
think
it seemed like it was.
absolutely
And did they blame it on the wind in the Evil Dead? Because they do in this.
I don't think they blame it on anything, do they? I honestly don't know.
I'm
I'll
not
have to
sure.
go
I
back
think
and
they
watch
might have
Evil
just
Dead.
like walked down. I was tempted to, but I was also like almost one. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to stay up to watch Evil Dead now.
Right. So Kurt, then his dare to Dana is to go down and not scream. And
Right.
she goes
and
down
I
and
must
sees...
have missed the that not scream part because it confused the hell out of me this time watching.
Yeah, because she goes down and then she screams, and he's like, hey, you have to, take a drink, or you have to take your shirt off.
You have to take your top off because you called for help.
Right. And I have to tell you, like, I absolutely love to go back and see how much detail is in the basement.
Yeah.
Because there's literally, like, trinkets and junk and props from, like, everything imaginable.
Actually, I would love
mean-
it if the wolf that Jules makes out with would summon the Wolfman.
Oh, right.
I was just thinking about that earlier. I'm like, oh, that would be perfect, but it seems like it all has to be in the basement.
Yeah, it seems like they have to. Right, they have to. So the idea is to bring up what's going to kill them. They have to pick something up and actually summon the creatures via the trinkets that are in the basement. So each one of them kind of takes one, and it's great to look back because later on when they're in the monster cages. And
like,
you look at all the monsters around them, you can go back into the basement and trace it back to a trinket that's in there.
Yeah.
Which is amazing to me.
Here's the thing that I like found it interesting the first time through, and it still does, is, I mean, they've almost got like a Hellraiser level fascination with these objects, so where it's like the moment that they find one of them, they become instantly fixated on it.
Right.
And like feel like they have to activate that object.
Yeah, and one of the items is absolutely a callback, and they even say it in the commentary, come back to Hellraiser. There's like a round puzzle.
Yep.
That it's not Kurt. Somebody has that they're kind of twisting. And
no,
pushing the buttons.
it's Kurt.
Is it Kurt?
Yeah.
He's manipulating this thing, which in the end ends up bringing up this guy who doesn't have pins. He has like
Fornicus. What?
Big saw blades in his head. That absolutely is a callback to Pinhead. So I love that.
Yeah, I mean, and I've got him on the IMDb trivia because I mean, he's like kind of one of my favorite monster throw-ins.
Right.
As Fornicus, Lord of Bondage and Pain, and it's like, yeah,
nice. So one of them picks up a big conch, which is a big deal because if he would have blown into it, he would have summoned the merman, which was Hadley's dream. Hadley was Bradley Whitford's character.
Yeah.
Who later on says, because what ends up happening is it me or does Marty get like all of the best lines in the entire film?
Oh, Marty gets like the greatest lines, but it also seems like he's the only one who's like not being influenced.
Right. He's like the Cisco character from The Flash. Like, he has all of the great lines. And basically Dana has this diary she starts reading from, and she starts reading the Latin in it. And like she's like,
there's Latin in this, and he's like, do not read the Latin.
That's where I draw the line. Why do you have to read it? And it is kind of a thing where it's like, it reminds me of the Evil Dead reboot.
Right.
When when the guy with the glasses opens the Necronomicon, and he like takes the pencil and starts like, figuring out what the words they scratched off, and he starts reading them out loud. It's like, why? Why the fuck would you do that? And I guess she's under the influence, right? Like, everybody's kind of being manipulated, so, you can kind of understand in this sense that they want to make sure that she does it.
Yeah.
In fact, isn't there a thing where there's a voice in the very, like, periphery that says read it?
Yes. Yeah, there is.
I think, and that's why she does it?
I wonder if that's what causes the same fascination for everybody, where it's like, since she's our main character, we kind of tune into her more.
Right.
Or she's like the focus of the... Well, I would say that since she's the main character up to this point, she's also like the focus of the shot. And so that's why we tend to hear her getting that subliminal message to read it. Meanwhile, like, let's say if you're Kurt, you might be getting one to solve it. Or no, did Kurt have that, or did Kurt have the conch cell, now that I think about it?
I think Kurt had the conch, and Holden had the puzzle.
That makes sense, because, I mean, it does kind of fit with Holden's type of character, where it's like he does seem like the type
right,
to
and,
solve a puzzle.
One of them was looking at the music box that would have brought the ballerina. I call the vagina teeth ballerina.
Oh, right, the whole, dentata type deal.
And somebody was putting on a necklace, and Marty was looking at film strips, and I don't know what that would have brought.
I was really curious about that, actually.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure which character that would have brought out, but yeah. So she reads the Latin, and the Buckners rise. They were a sadistic family from the 1800s, like one of those super religious, sadistic type families. They rise from the ground, and there's a great scene where they're running the betting pool in the bunker, where they have a big. A board up with all the possibilities of what's going to get called up, and it shows everybody betting on, what's going to come up, and that was kind of a cool thing. But so,
actually, real quick, I looked it up. The film strip would summon Kevin. He's a sweet-looking guy who, on the surface, appears normal, but underneath is a psychotic killer who dismembers people.
I'm not sure.
And you have to look at the entire film strip to summon him.
Okay.
I guess it was in the novelization.
So if they would have played it,
yeah,
like, hey, let's look at this, and they put in a projector and played it.
Or even if he just had like pulled out the entire reel and looked at the slides.
Okay, so I didn't even realize there was a novelization.
Yeah, neither did I, honestly. Which I wonder if that would bring in some more of these monster things, because I would love to know how the ballerina lady kills people, for example.
Yeah, I think she just would have eaten people.
Maybe. I don't know.
Vagina teeth.
They just seem like they wouldn't be very good for killing folks, Also, I guess her name is the Sugar Plum Fairy, or the Ballerina Dentata.
Yeah, the Ballerina Dentata. I heard they mentioned that in the commentary. So at this point, everybody kind of splits off. Marty goes into his room because he's kind of pissed because of how everybody's acting. Dana and Holden go on the couch, and the other two go off into the woods to get it on, basically.
Yeah.
And you get another sense of how they manipulate stuff, because she kind of doesn't want to. Like, he's like, let's do this, man. And she's kind of like, eh. So they use their controls and they bring up the lighting in the area of the forest they're at, and then they raise the temperature, or they
raise the temperature, and they bring in the pheromone fog.
Pheromones fog in, which then she's like, yeah, okay. To which she gets naked. God bless her. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently the director was extremely nervous about this. It's like him and like Joss Whedon's first like nude scene, I guess, that they've done on film.
Which almost seems surprising to me. for some reason.
Joss
But then again, I
Whedon-
guess maybe not for Joss Whedon, because Joss Whedon
Yeah.
tends to write like very like strong female characters.
Right.
But it also seems weird to me that he would also then be like so against any form of nudity.
Right, and I mean, they were all happy for it, but they were very, very nervous. And she was kind of like, "Look, if you've seen some of this, like the TV, I guess she did a show in Australia or something where she's like, I've done way worse than this. It's fine." And so so she gets naked, and then the Buckner show up and attack her. And the one thing that they do point out is the fact that she gets naked, but it's not gratuitous, because once they attack her, she's covered up the rest of the time.
Yeah,
Her
it's
her
all
shirt
above
is
the
open,
neck too.
but her shirt is open, but it's not. She's her nipples are covered up or whatever. So they didn't want to. They kind of wanted to be a little bit more tasteful with it, I guess. I don't know. I would have. Plus, she gets a bear trap to the back, and they said it would have been really hard to come up with a device where if she didn't have a shirt on, the bear trap would have worked.
Yeah.
So with the shirt on, they could have done the rig and everything else. So she's the first to die. She gets her head cut off. Basically, that's where it like kicks in, like full gear. Like the Buckners start attacking the cabin, and they're gonna like stick together, and they go, oh shit, they can't stick together. So they introduce another like pheromone fog, and they're like, no, let's split up. And they're like, yeah, that's a good idea. I think that's the point at which Marty realizes that there's hidden cameras.
Yeah.
Because he breaks a lamp or something and sees the fiber optic camera.
Is super convenient, I'll admit.
Yeah.
But it does make me wonder, like, I mean, the Fool, how often is he just an absolute wild card like this?
Right. And you find out later on that the weed that he's been smoking is actually immunized him from all of the stuff. Like, he keeps saying, like, we're puppets, we're being manipulated, somebody's got the strings, and they're like, why is this shit not working on him? And he
does bring up
finds
one of my things though, where I do have this whole like background plot to like, what if like somebody decided to sabotage it, just based off the fact that they are like, we've been treating the hell out of his weed, so it's possible like, yeah, he just grabbed a different stash, but it's also like
possible like maybe there's a side thing where somebody doesn't believe in it anymore, and so they switch it out,
and like they have the electrical glitch later, which could be explained as him messing around the elevators.
I was going to say I will explain some of this other stuff.
I did attribute it to that this time around, but I mean it could also very well be like somebody fucking around with stuff in an act of deliberate sabotage.
Sure. So they split up. Marty gets attacked through the window. They pull him out. He runs off, and they throw a knife at him. And at that point, they pull the lever and break the vial. And the Fool, we'll call it the relief. So basically what happens is they pull a lever, and this blood goes down into this relief that is a symbol of each one of the kids.
Which I was kind of trying to figure out, like, who cleans that up later?
There's a janitorial staff, right? I mean, they have every other bureaucratical thing.
It's just like, that would be such a mess.
So that's one of the things that they don't really explain, is the fact that they do that, and then there's like an earthquake. What's his name? Hadley says, whoa, they're getting excited down there. It comes out later on, you find out that he's not dead. And they pulled the lever, and the gods are pissed. Because
I do wonder, though...
They pulled the lever, basically saying this sacrifice is done in your name, blah blah blah, and the gods start pounding away downstairs because they're like, no. And I didn't realize that until I watched the commentary, and they said basically like, this is the gods basically having a fit because they didn't actually complete the sacrifice.
I was curious if they like knew somehow that the sacrifice had actually been committed or not, because it's like, I'm just trying to figure out how it works, because it seems like it would have to be something that they see. Right.
They would have to sense it or something, sure.
So I don't know if maybe they could have also been disappointed that it happened somewhere that they couldn't see it.
Well, in this sense, they were upset because it actually didn't happen.
Right.
Which kind of throws everything into disarray as far as how the system works, because people have to be killed in a certain order. Mainly everybody but the Virgin has to be killed first.
Yeah.
And so they all pile into the RV and take off. And... the tunnel is already the tunnel to leave, because basically there's a cave that you drive through to get in and out. That isn't collapsed, and they said it's a glitch from upstairs. And I didn't actually understand what the glitch was until I watched the commentary, and they say it's Marty fucking around upstairs.
Okay, so I guess that does kind of get rid of the sabotage subplot.
Right. And because he was upstairs, like, hot wiring stuff and dicking around, he gets into the elevator shafts and starts dicking around with stuff, he actually causes a power glitch that keeps the pyrotechnics from going off. Sitterson, who's amazing, like, does this great thing where he does great movie running through the whole complex. And, like, does a great, like, Star Trek thing where he pulls out all the circuit boards and starts, like, rewiring shit. and blows up the tunnel, basically, blocks their way out.
Yeah.
And the only way to get out is through that chasm. And I totally forgot that when they pulled in through there, that at the very beginning of the movie, that a bird flies around and runs into this force field. Did you remember the force field?
Yep. And
I totally forgot about the force field. So when Thor gets on his bike and jumps across and hits the force field, I jumped. I was like, "Oh shit! I totally forgot about that."
I just wasn't sure what the
rules are. I watched it with my parents one time, and like my stepdad was like, "Oh, remember that force field?" And I was like, "How did I not remember this?"
I was just curious what the rules are on that thing, because it's like, it lets the van in, and in theory, would have let the van out. Because,
right.
I mean, that seems like the reason why they're scrambling to blow up the chasm is because otherwise they could have just escaped.
Right.
So
and
it's
what
like,
happens if they do?
Yeah.
Well,
and
they
it's
fail.
like, so it's kind of just like, I don't know what the rules are necessarily, like, if there's a size thing, or what.
Yeah. But I'm a sucker when I start getting into a movie. I have a tendency to forget a lot of stuff that people seem to, click around in their brains. Plus, at this point, remember, Chris Hemsworth, a big star.
Yeah.
And at the time that it was made, he wasn't a big star. He was a star, but not that big. So when it came out, you fully expect him to live to the end because he's Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah.
So I did really surprise me. But, you mentioned them getting away in a failure. What's the big problem going on right now? Every other site in the world has failed their scenarios.
Which is thinking, I thought about this time around, and I'll run it by you. This was the theory that I brought up before we started filming. So do you think that maybe it's possible that the reason why all these things are failing is because of horror movies? Like, if you think about it, like, we, as a collective, understand, like, how to kill a zombie now because of horror films.
Right.
Where it's like, before, you could have had a nightmare about a zombie, because these things are all supposed to be creatures of nightmare. And without a collective understanding, I could see you going to this cabin, getting attacked by zombies, and, like, not knowing how to defend yourself.
Right.
But because of, like, horror films now, it's like, we get it, like, okay,
right.
Zombie, you typically, except in this case, I guess, aim for the head and you're good.
Right.
So it's like, Japan previously had, like, 100% win streak.
Right, but if you notice, like, their scenario is a perfect homage to J-horror.
Yeah.
It's
well,
all the schoolgirls with the scary spirit.
Yeah, and it's like, I wonder how much of that is that, and how much is, like, just the spread of folklore now? Because it's like, let's say that they are living in a thing where it's like, the ritual happens every, let's say, 7 or 10 or whatever years.
Right.
Instead of just, like, yearly. I could see then with, let's say this happened during shooting 2009, so the last one, let's say 10 years ago, 1999.
Right.
I would say that, like, we didn't have quite the same spread of information like we do now, so it's like they run into some sort of Japanese spirit thing, and while before they might not have understood, like, how to defeat this spirit, now with, like, the spread of this information possibly having a way out of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, horror movies are more prevalent now, right? Especially with globalization and digital filmmaking, and now
which
you
is
have
why I was like,
everybody
maybe,
like, yeah. So it's very possible that people have a better, understanding of horror movie tropes and everything else. It does lead to, like, one of my favorite things of the entire movie is when it comes up and it shows the failure where all the Japanese schoolgirls
and just
the frog.
Fuck you,
and Sitterson looks at it and points and goes, "Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you," and it's like, I don't know why, but every single time I see that, I just bust up laughing.
Yep.
It's so great. So the 3-act structure I wrote down is perfect. I talk about a lot with screenwriting and stuff. I love how there's, like, a transition between acts. Mm-hmm. Like, from Act 1 to Act 2, they actually cross into the basement.
Yeah.
Right? And Act 2 to Act 3, before the virgin gets killed, Marty, the fool, saves her.
Yeah.
And they basically run into the place where the Buckners come up. And it's a big it's a big pit with an elevator in it. Basically, when they cross down into that elevator, we enter Act 3, and it's like a perfect cut almost. So everybody's like they're celebrating because, you know, what you find out later is the Virgin doesn't have to die; she just has to suffer. Mm-hmm. Fate decides whether or not she's going to live or die. So she's the last one. She's suffering, and so as far as everybody's concerned, they've passed. And so they're partying, and there's some great kind of like inner office jokes that go back and forth. But the phone rings, and it's from upstairs, who basically says, this isn't over. The fool is still alive. And so that's when you find out Marty's still there. They go into the elevator, where they find out the elevator goes down into this huge complex, and they're basically in a glass box with, like, what would you say, like 100 different monsters?
Yeah.
You know, when they find, like, a ghost, they find a werewolf, they find the puzzle guy. That's, what did you say his name was?
Fornicus?
Fornicus, the Lord of Torture or something.
Lord of Bondage and Pain.
Right. And there's the best, like, pan back in the entire film is when they pan back and they show what looks like just it's a menagerie, but it's just like a huge puzzle of these boxes of all of these monsters. And if you, like, pause and look at all the monsters, it's like a perfect amalgam of, like, everything that's horror. You have the scary clown, you have the scary twins, you have a serpent, you have a bat, a werewolf.
Well, it's literally like, if you could think of something that was used in a horror movie, here it is.
It's there, right. It's there. And they find their way to the bottom, and just kind of skipping forward a little bit, basically in a roundabout way, they release all the monsters, who then starts tearing this complex apart.
Mm-hmm. And like the best scene of the movie. It's
like some of the best stuff. They coat the entire floor with blood.
I mean, especially there's that bit where
the entire floor, meaning the entire story of the building or whatever.
Well, and I always have to have a huge laugh when it's like there's a bit where the guards like round the corner to the elevator room. There's like the 3 zombies chowing down, bit of guts like spills from the floor, and then it's just like it's dead silent, and then you just have the ding as as the elevator comes in, and like just another like wave of murder comes through, and it's like something about the just juxtaposition between the silence and just surreal sort of scene mixed in with the sun. Oh yeah, and by the way, here's more.
Yeah, and
like,
I love like the silence and then like the bag of guts that drops.
Yep.
It's like out of nowhere, plop. Yeah, so they release, basically they purge the system, and so it's these monsters are tearing up the entire place. And while that's going on, the control room in the bunker is getting attacked. Mm-hmm. And what was his name? Truman, the guard, gets killed, but he goes out swinging. He like sets off a grenade.
Yeah, by the straw people, which is like those guys are also like. I think everything had a really cool design to it, like as far as the monsters go and costumes and everything.
Everything did, and the other thing too is, and they said that because it was their first movie, nobody told them they couldn't do this, but they went and filmed like all of the monsters attacking somebody and actually put them on the screens. Mm-hmm. So there was playback for like 50 monitors in this room. Normally you would like put that in post or something, but they actually filmed this and put them all on the 50 monitors.
Yeah.
So there's playback going on, all the stuff, and if you like kind of slow it down or pause it and look, there's all of this crazy shit going on in the monitors.
Yeah.
That is just absolutely amazing. But the next and last perfect Bradley Whitford moment is when he's blown back. The really funny bit, he's shooting like an Uzi, like a machine gun.
Yeah.
And apparently Drew Goddard said he was like just loving it. He handed him notes. It's one of these things between takes you always get director's notes.
Yeah.
That says, hey, do this. And basically the note said, instead of this being the best day of your life, this is the worst day of your life. Because apparently he was loving just like shooting guns and doing all this stuff. And he's like, no, this is horrible. Like, but anyway, so he meets his end at the hands of the one creature that he's always wanted to see, which was amazing, the merman.
Yeah, I actually really liked the design of it. I was expecting something super cheesy, a little bit like a Little Mermaid type design.
Yeah.
Where it's literally just like, here's fish, here's man, but instead it's like, it's a proper monster.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
I love how it like comes out of the smoke and he looks at it and it's just perfect because he just goes, oh, come on.
And I
like
love how like
it like chomps down on it, and then his blowhole.
yeah, like
at the
spews
top
the blood
just-
and everything, and it's like it is a fantastic scene.
It's perfect. And then the giant snake serpent thing like takes Lynn. Like,
Actually-
comes down from the. Go ahead.
Is it the snake serpent thing? Because it looks more like a octopus tentacle.
Maybe.
Because it looked
Maybe.
like it was that,
sure.
and then I heard a crunch, which makes it seem like it would be something like a kraken had come down and like picked her up.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so this big tentacle comes down and scoops her up. And Sitterson gets, like, into this, like, maintenance or emergency hatch or something, and, like, comes around the corner, and it's, like, this perfect... Remember how when we were talking about Would You Rather? How they did these perfect jump scares where,
Yeah.
like, in the middle of a sentence, they would shoot somebody? This was the same
Yeah,
thing.
it's just
where,
like super sudden.
Yeah,
and
you're
just
like-
boom, and you're
yeah,
there.
he comes around the corner, and bam, he just gets jabbed with a knife from Dana. And he's like, it's you. And she's leaning down, and he looks at Marty, and he says, kill him.
Yeah.
And which is kind of like, what the hell? So it's kind of a weird thing because at this point Marty hands her the gun and says, here, take this, it's easier.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, what the hell does that mean? Because
I think
What
it
do you
just
mean it's
refers to the
easier?
actual, like, it's one thing to stab somebody with a knife and get super close. It's another thing to
Right.
shoot them from a distance and not have to, like, watch them die.
right. Yeah, I don't know, it was just kind of, it was weird. So they go into the chamber where they meet, like, I love how Sigourney Weaver pops up in all these films. Like, she did it in Paul.
Here's the thing is I feel like I should have known because it is her voice over the intercom.
Yeah,
And I
right,
should have
and-
picked up on it. And I did
sh-
this time around because I could easily compare it to, like, Aliens.
Right.
But I guess my first time through, I hadn't really seen her in anything for a while beyond, like, maybe Avatar.
Right. It's she pops up, she's the director, and apparently she was like, I guess Drew Goddard said he was really like intimidated by her, but she like walked on set and was like 100% game. She's like, where's the werewolf? When does the werewolf show up? And I guess during lunch she was like, you need to make sure somebody sits with the werewolf. Don't let him eat by himself. And he's like, she was so into it. Where she explains the whole thing. Like, it's a ritual sacrifice that goes on, I don't know, however. And there's 5 people. There's the jock. There's the scholar. The whore, right? The whore.
Yeah.
Which, kind of going back, it's like, the Harbinger called her whore.
Yeah.
Like, he called her out as her place in it, which was kind of weird. There's the fool, which was Marty, and then there's the virgin. And she kind of explains, like, how it works and basically says, look, if this doesn't happen, the ancients rise, and the ancients are more terrible than anything that's ever been seen in the history of anything. Like, if they rise, and if you're a fan of Lovecraftian universe, you know that there's the ancient ones, Cthulhu being like one of those, right? He's one of the elder gods, who basically, if they rise, would consume the earth. Basically, they would eat all of the humans. So she kind of says, like, if this doesn't happen like this, like, everybody that you know will die, and which I thought was kind of awesome. I didn't know about the Lovecraftian element to it.
Yeah, it's the biggest disappointment for me because, like, that would have been the bit that I would have gone crazy for. But,
So she goes to kill him, but gets attacked by the werewolf. Marty and the director fight, and the Buckner girl, like, hits her in the head with a hatchet.
yeah.
And falls down in the Ancient Ones. And they basically, the movie ends with them sitting on the steps as everything's crumbling. So they kind of talk about how, like, I guess maybe it's time for, the world to hit a reset. And at the very last thing, a giant hand, like, comes up through the, through the complex, through the cabin, and comes down and basically smashes down on the ground. The Ancient Ones are rising, and that's the end of it.
Followed
I
by,
was- Go ahead.
Nine Inch Nails is last.
Right.
As, like, the credit song, which I felt like was the perfect bookmark to it.
I agree. For some reason, I like the ending, but I don't know. There was something about the Ancient One coming up that I didn't like.
Right, like, if they had ended it, maybe as they fire up the blunt, and then just hard cut to the end, maybe that would have
Yeah.
been different. I don't know.
I'm
Or
not
even
opposed
just
to-
as, like, the society crumbles down. It seems like it does feel a little bit weird just having it come in. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm not opposed to one of the Ancient Ones rising up. I don't know if the giant hand did it for me.
Right, so you would rather
know,
have, like,
I-
a full-on eruption out of the earth?
Something like that. I don't know. There was just something about it that was off. So, my 2 main questions are, is one, So, is there an ancient one underneath each one of the facilities?
I would believe so, yeah.
Is that how that works? That there's like 7 or 8 ancient ones like
Well, and like
sleeping
following, if it is truly like Lovecraftian, then yes, because they do tend to just dwell underneath the earth in various areas.
in different places?
Yeah,
Because it just seemed kind of odd that that there was one underneath this particular facility, unless there was one underneath each one.
I feel like that would be the thing, though. Is that I think the facilities were specifically built over these things
That makes sense.
as a place to then work this from.
And the other thing is they keep talking about maybe doing a sequel.
Were they? Because
And,
I was reading in it, and there was a thing where I guess one of the directors had answered that in a Q&A session with, "Did you see the ending to my movie?"
Yeah, but the studio, because it was fairly
It was
successful.
very successful, yeah.
Enough so that they've talked about it a few times, but like how would that work? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like would it pick up? I would love to see it pick up where it where it left off, where they're eating the world, and I'd like to see what's her name and Marty, Dana and Marty, not be dead.
Well, personally, I would love to see the facility or the ritual from other countries. But that's just from like the personal like loving to have that sort of dissection of the horror genre, where it's like as a avid consumer of like J horror, it would be great to see that broken down into like these are the requirements.
You could do another one to which the ritual works.
Yeah,
Because it's in most horror movies there's not a happy ending.
no,
So you very well could have it to where everybody gets killed and the ritual works, but you could explore different subgenres of, the horror movie mythos. Like you said, like do a J horror one,
Yeah.
where they're underneath. I guess you could do something like maybe a Godzilla thing or something.
that would actually be kind of interesting. My thing is just like I would love to see more of the overall universe, especially when it comes to like. I guess that they have to choose for every one of these, right? So I would love to see what they would come up with for the like object selection room for each of these countries.
Let's see. You could like do Slipmouth Girl, I guess.
Yeah, so you'd have like maybe like a pair of scissors or like a portrait or something,
Sure.
and then like videotape. I don't know. There's a whole lot of things you could have. Like I can't remember what they're called, but there's these little slips that are used in like Buddhist and Shinto type rituals that are supposed to like purify spirits,
Yeah.
which are a whole thing.
It would be a nice, clever way to go back and look at some of the, some of the mythologies from different cultures.
Yeah.
And let them play out like that. So, is there any other positives that you can think of? And it's anything that we've missed so far?
With it being the way that it is, like this super kind of meta film where it's like, I said it before, it's really like the scream of the, of kind of this, I guess, decade or,
Yeah, sure. Or
last,
yeah,
like,
I agree.
several
But
years, yeah.
it definitely harkens back to even the 70s during the slasher crazes of the 70s and the 80s. That.
Well, it's just like taking the rules from like Scream, where it's like, oh, and here's the rules to survive a horror movie.
Right.
This goes one step further, and it's like, okay, well, here's the sort of the characters present in like every horror movie. Like you could boil them down to these things and these archetypes, and there's always these scenarios and everything.
It kind of goes back, like you can think of it like in the Scream, you had the rules. Here's the rules to survive. Yep. These are almost like the rules for the killer to win.
Yeah.
It's the opposite side of it.
Yeah.
The only negative that I really have about this, despite what I've pointed out, is there's a couple of scenes where it shows where all of the other facilities have failed.
Yeah.
And I thought they looked horrible.
That's the thing, is like there's the one where it's supposed to be like Madrid, and it's like I don't know what's going on here, but it looks more like an action movie where it's like, oh, and here's the house exploding, and it's like it looks super kind of just cheap, and it looks like something that was maybe filmed in the 80s and used as stock footage.
Yeah, and there was I think the one from, is it Stockholm, where there was the helicopter flying over, and it was like the remnants of like a building or a wall or something, and I was like, this looks like a model. Wow, because everything else looks so great, it just kind of shocked me a little bit of kind of how horrible that looked. I liked where
but then I wonder if it's not the monitors
thing.
Because it's like from the monitors in the J horror thing, it looks horrible, but when you actually go into the camera in the J horror thing, it looks nice and crisp and sharp, and like
it's
it
possible.
should.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't. The J horror one didn't look as cheesy as the other ones did.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's because of the scale. They were in a single room, and this they were trying to do
Yeah,
like
it was
a
much
bigger
grander. I
thing.
mean, I think that I was reading that the one in for I think Spain has to involve like a natural disaster
Right.
or whatever. And so that's why there's like a volcano exploding. Let's see, clothesline zombie woo. Because there's that bit where Kurt like clotheslines the fuck out of Patience, and it is like the greatest flip ever.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they actually talk about it in the commentary because they said it was kind of one of those things that only like happens in filmmaking where you constantly try to get somebody to flip a certain way,
Yeah.
and then you realize like the human body's not meant to flip that way.
Yeah.
So when they actually did it and it came through, they kind of went, no, this is how it should be.
Well, and then there's also the whole bit where it's like these monsters are sort of the remnant of the old world, which, having read as much Lovecraft stuff as I have lately, let's see, show us the boobies is so meta. It is kind of great because they have so many scenes where these two guys are voicing literally what you are thinking in that moment. You know, I mean, I don't know too many people who watched that scene and probably weren't thinking that exact same thing. And in the moment that they say it, it's like, yes, you guys get it.
Yeah, I love the bit where she like slides her shirt off, and like even Holden, the guard, like his head kind of slowly comes into frame.
Yep.
Like he's looking at it. It's like, it's creepy, but somehow satisfying.
And of course, I've got Chekhov's bong in here. Oh, there's a bit where they open up the trapdoor in the second bedroom, right?
Right.
And I love how they actually do like take a moment to like look before they just jump in. Because there's so many movies where they would just like, oh, we're gonna jump in, and that would bug the shit out of me.
Right.
But the fact that they looked and everything was pretty great.
Yeah, it was. What did they call it? The black. Was that the black room?
Yeah.
In
I
the
love
diary,
how
it talks about how the dad like takes the family members if he feels like they haven't been pious enough. I don't know what
Yeah.
he would say. If they haven't been holy enough, he takes them down into the black room and tortures them and or kills them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was a creepy room too.
And of course, like, you have the big hero speech from Kurt. It does get you to think that, okay, well, there's a chance that he'll make it out of this. And then it's just like, the next thing you know, splat. And just like, I'm always a sucker for scenes where people are falling long distances for whatever reason. Like, I'll watch a movie, and if somebody gets thrown out a window, I'm laughing my ass off. You know, or like, thrown down a flight of stairs. Like, for
Right.
some reason, that is the greatest thing to me. And,
The one problem I did have with that scene is the fact that he keeps hitting the force field.
right?
And you would think once he falls and he hits it, that he would just keep flipping away from it. For some reason, he hits it, flops away from it, and then comes back and hits it again.
I
and
read
then
it as
comes
more
back
like,
and hits it again.
I read it more as him like just bouncing off of it, but then again, it does seem a bit weird because that seems like something that if it felt like gravity was attracted to that surface,
Right.
which is a bit weird. I've got a line from Marty. I had to dismember that guy with a trowel. What have you been up to? Which is just like something about his delivery there. Like,
It was perfect.
I would
Like,
love to
everything
see
he
him
did
as
was
that role
perfect.
more.
Yeah, everything he did was perfect. And, you know, the thing is most people maybe don't harken this back, but he dismembered it with a trowel. And a trowel is what the zombie in the original Night of the Living Dead, the little girl,
Yeah.
she kills her mom at the end with a
Oh, I
garden trowel.
forgot about that.
So it's I think it's kind of, at least it struck me that way, is a call back to the original Night of the Living Dead. It may not have been purposely that way, but that's where my brain went.
Now, see, and I got two more things. First of all, the unicorn kill scene. Like,
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
for some reason, like, a unicorn didn't strike me as a horror icon until it started stabbing the guy. And I'm like, okay, yeah, no, now I can see why this is here.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because you see the unicorn and you're like, oh, wait, what is the unicorn doing here? And then he like charges somebody and like jabs his horn through him and through the wall.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's why he's there.
And then the other
That's
thing,
amazing.
and I brought this up with you last night. I don't know how I missed this, but there's the whole X-Files reference that like somehow I didn't catch until this time around.
I caught it, but I didn't note it down or anything. Like I definitely, when he says the line, what's the line again?
We're not who we are.
Right, and that comes from, I think it's the
It's
season one.
Yep,
like,
season 1, episode 3, Ice.
Yeah, Ice, which is one of, to this
It's
day.
like a fantastic episode, and that's the thing is like when I heard him say it, I like had the line like repeating in my head, and I couldn't remember where the fuck it was from. And of course, after I checked, I'm like, oh, I feel so like disappointed in myself. Like I should know this.
Right. Yeah, I totally thought about it. To this day, it's one of my top probably 3 favorite episodes of all of X-Files.
That's basically the highlight of my notes. I had a bunch of like kind of just one-off sort of notes, but none of them really great, except Bongmobile. I've here's things I've got.
That's another thing. I love when, like, the introduction to Marty is perfect because he pulls up and, like, the smoke just rolls out of the car.
Well, and I would say that his one quote is, like, it's kind of what made me want to watch this movie. It's like the first time I saw it quoted online, and I'm pulling it up right now so I could read the entirety of it. Like, the first time I'd heard somebody say it, I was like, okay, or type it out. I'm like, okay, I need to figure out where this is from and watch this immediately. Because it's like, it's the best. Statistical fact, cops will never pull over a man with a huge bong in his car. Why? They fear this man. They know he sees further than they, and he will blind them with ancient logics. And it's like something about that line. I'm like, yeah, I love this character immediately, and I feel like that is the perfect, like, if you were trying to summarize Marty's character, that would be it right there.
That's it. I love how he, like, gets out and he shuts the door and, like, locks it. Like, reaches through the open window, locks it, and then tests the handle to make sure it's locked, and then walks off.
Yeah.
It's like, it's perfect. And, you know, one of the best bits of the thing is, like, Kurt's like, dude, you're not getting my uncle's RV, like, with this giant bong. And he's like, what? And he, like, takes it, unscrews it, and, like, folds it into a coffee cup.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, you know, what are you, high? And he, like, walks off, and it's like, it's perfect. It's like the perfect introduction. But again, I thought the introduction to all the characters are great. The bureaucratic guys, the home office guys were perfect because you don't know who they are until, like, halfway through. Like, what are these guys doing? Each one of the college people fit their archetype perfectly, you know, and you find everything you would need to about them in the first 5 minutes that they're on screen.
Yeah.
And, you know, the rest of it is just filling in the puzzle on what's going on. So, yeah, not a whole lot I can say negative about this film. It's one of my favorites. And, again, every 4 episodes, we're going to do one of our favorites. And it can be, you know, anything, not necessarily a lesser-known film. It can be, you know, something that everybody's seen and we just love.
Well, because I think, like, number 8, I think we've got Ichi the Killer for number 8. And that's one that I know you haven't seen. And I've, like, seen that 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, I have not seen it. And originally I wanted to do Tucker and Dale versus Evil as a favorites. I haven't seen Ichi the Killer, and it's one of your favorites. And I'm like, yeah, let's just move things around. Let's do that. And so I don't know anything about this, so I'm going to go into it completely blind.
There's a lot of cinematography stuff in it that I would love to be able to address because it's like having your take on it and everything would be very interesting.
People love that. I mean, it comes very highly rated from different Facebook groups that I'm in. They're like, you know, you got to see this. So I'm looking forward to it. Next week for episode 5, we're going to do Phantasm.
Yep.
And the reason that I kind of insisted on doing that, I wish we hadn't waited as long to start doing this because a few weeks ago, actually almost a month ago, Angus Scrim, who plays the tall man, passed away at, I can't remember his age. He was 80-some. But he's like one of the most iconic characters in horror, the tall man.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I wanted to do Phantasm. I'm not sure we've, you know, decided what the next ones are, but next week. So if you haven't seen Phantasm yet, I question your choices in life, but I understand. So run out and watch Phantasm because we will be breaking it down next week and talking about that in honor of the great Angus Scrim. And I'll probably, there's a little monologue he does at the beginning of the Phantasm DVD that I may end up playing, where he talks about the first time that when he was offered the part of the tall man. So once again, I just want to do a shout out to Small City Blues from Regina, Saskatchewan. Definitely check them out and purchase their single and help them out. Anybody else you want to give a shout out to?
If you guys haven't yet, and it's very likely that you haven't heard of them because they're very new, go check out the Horrified podcast. They kind of take what we do and, like, take a movie and really break it down. Their most recent episode was Scream, which was great because I hadn't watched it in forever. And they also did one for, like, their first episode was Cannibal Holocaust, which is, to me, a classic.
Should we do Hannibal? Should we do Cannibal Holocaust at some point? Because to be honest with you, I've never seen that movie all the way through.
But we could also choose maybe one of those other, like, lesser-known Grindhouse films and maybe take a look at one of those.
Okay.
Because it's like there's a lot of them that, you know, are fantastic that maybe people don't know quite as well.
When you are here next, I do have a copy of The Green Inferno. that we need to watch.
Yeah, right. I forgot that we need to check that. That was the one that
Speaking
Eli
of
Roth
Cannibal
did, right?
Holocaust. Yes.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
you
it's his
mentioned that.
homage to Cannibal Holocaust.
And of course, they also did one for like The Exorcist, which was great.
Oh man.
And another one for Rosemary's Baby,
Oh.
which was
So
also really great.
What are these guys called?
They're the Horrified podcast. You can
All
check
right.
them out on iTunes, and I think they're on SoundCloud, but I'm not sure.
Awesome. And speaking of, if you would be so kind to subscribe to us on iTunes, give us a great rating and a review on iTunes. That helps us out a lot. Because we're just starting out, we have a pretty small audience. Word of mouth is everything to us. So if you can share us with your friends, share us with your enemies if you want, I guess. If you really can't stand listening to us and you want to drive your enemies crazy, send us their way. I don't care. I'll whore myself out to anybody. So join our Facebook group, facebook.com/FilmGuildCast. I've kind of aligned everything now, so you can follow us on Twitter at FilmGuildCast. If you, you can also get us via email at filmguildcast@gmail.com. Next, actually within the next few days, our website will be up, and that should be, I haven't gotten the domain yet, it should be filmguildcast.com or .net, one of the two, whichever is available. And from there, you can kind of get our past episodes, and hopefully we'll be running some blogs with some movie news and kind of our own reviews of stuff and things like that. But definitely subscribe to us, share us with your buddies. All right, well, thanks for listening. We've actually managed to go underneath 2 hours, and I'll be trimming this back a little bit more, I'm sure, so that it's even a little bit less. But thanks for sitting with us for Cabin in the Woods, and we'll catch you next week for Phantasm. Have an excellent viewing week.
Bye.
Bye!